When you're a leader, it can feel like everything is a priority, and it can be hard to determine where to spend your time and energy. Over time, this constant reaction mode, instead of being proactive, can lead to exhaustion and burnout. In this week's episode of The Happy Leader, I'll share a story about Kevin. Kevin was an executive coaching client of mine who felt really exhausted by this constant firefighting mode that he was in. He didn't have a system to help him prioritize, and therefore, at the end of the year, he didn't feel like he'd gotten everything done that he wanted to. I will share with you the process that I took Kevin through and the massive change that he made in being able to really clearly understand where to prioritize his time and his efforts. Welcome to The Happy Leader. I'm Amy Sanchez, executive coach to some of the most innovative leaders and teams in Silicon Valley. I'll share stories and tips to help you navigate the most common leadership challenges so you can amplify what matters most: happiness. When you're a leader and everything screams urgency, how do you decide what gets your attention first? In today's episode of The Happy Leader, we're diving into the most daunting task that every leader faces: how to prioritize when everything feels important. As a leader, there's no shortage of people who need things from you, both in your personal and professional life. In today's always on digital age, the requests just don't stop. They come in day and night, weekday and weekend. If you're someone who can sometimes feel overwhelmed by this phenomenon, know that you are not alone. In 2021, Forbes reported that 66% of employees felt overwhelmed by too many tasks. It's just a natural occurrence in today's digital world. But it doesn't make it any easier when you're a leader to help you determine what to prioritize. Here's the good news. The antidote to how to prioritize is also the pathway to greater productivity. The Center for Creative Leadership demonstrated that leaders who prioritize effectively have teams that are 1.4 times more productive. Makes sense, right? Prioritization can help you feel more in control, both personally and professionally, and it can help your team understand where to focus their efforts. In short, it's a win-win. One of the biggest mistakes that I see leaders make is not spending enough time prioritizing or prioritizing in silos. As a leader, if you're not prioritizing weekly or even daily, you're setting yourself up and your team to be in fighter mode. I know that you have likely worked for a manager who was consistently in firefighting mode, so you know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of this. Careful planning, prioritization, and alignment will help you anticipate needs rather than react to them. And that's going to lead to more sanity and skilled strategic execution. So here's what we're going to talk about in episode 3 of The Happy Leader today. We're going to talk about why it's important to prioritize, how this is going to help you from both an efficiency and a mental well-being or happiness standpoint. I'm going to share a story from the Silicon Valley archives about how this really came to life in executive coaching. And finally, I'm going to give you 3 very specific, easy to implement tips that you can take action on right after this podcast to help you feel more in control. So here's what typically happens when I'm working with clients. Work gets top priority. It's always top of mind. It's the first thing they think about when they wake up. The loved ones get second priority, health and wellness third, and everything else fourth. Generally, that's the order. You can switch around 2 through 4, but that's usually what I see. However, there's an interesting phenomenon that happens as we climb further up in our career. It's really important that we say yes early on in our career when we are an individual contributor, because like it or not, that's how we stand out, right? That's how we build a reputation as a dependable employee who's willing to go the distance for the company. It's also easier to do this when we're younger because most people have more energy and less obligations outside of work when they're younger versus earlier in their career. Now, that's a sweeping assumption, and it doesn't apply to everybody, but generally that's what we see. But here's the thing. When we dive into values, prioritizing work first and everything else after, tends to clash with top values for a lot of people. And when we're misaligned with our top values, it's really hard for us to show up as our best selves because we carry guilt and we end up blaming ourselves. That in turn knocks our confidence. And in turn, we can't show up as the leaders, partners, friends, caregivers, etc. that we want to be when our confidence has taken a hit. Your ability to prioritize doesn't just impact you when you're a leader, it impacts your team as well. When you fill your plate, you have less time to offer your team. When you decide to take on a project, it means that you are deciding to stretch your team further. That's why it's really, really important, if you don't already have a methodology in place to help you with prioritization, that you put one in place, so that the activities that you decide to invest your finite amount of time and attention to are really going to help move the needle for you and your team. And again, we want to talk about moving the needle for you personally and professionally, because the two are intertwined. If we're not happy at home, we can't show up as our best selves at work. If we're not happy at work, it's hard to show up as our best selves at home. So in order to really move the needle for you, you want to consider both. To really bring this alive, a story from the Silicon Valley archives. This is a story about a top leader from a large pharmaceutical company. Let's call him Kevin. When Kevin hired me, the words he used to describe his need for coaching were this: I feel like I'm pulled in a million directions daily and I'm exhausted. I constantly feel guilty for not giving everyone enough time, my team, my family, and my friends. But at the end of the day, I collapse on the bed in exhaustion. I have nothing left to give, and I can't keep going on like this. After he shared this with me, I asked him one question. Kevin, when was the last time you felt good about yourself? He paused for what felt like eternity, and eventually softly replied, I honestly can't remember. Kevin was working 60-hour weeks. He hadn't taken a proper vacation in years, and he was traveling several times a month for work. He felt awful about himself. To say that his quality of life was low was an understatement. To help clarify what he really needed to set our coaching goal, I asked him this: Kevin, what would help make you feel confident again? Kevin paused. His eyes looked around the room as if he was looking for a sign to help him answer. Then his eyes darted back to the screen, and a look of assurance appeared in his face for the first time during our conversation. This was his reply: I want to be in control of my life again. I'm tired of feeling like I need to clone myself to stay on top of everything, and I'm tired of feeling like I'm always a step behind. To further clarify our coaching goal, I asked, how do you want to feel? Quickly this time, as if the answer had been eluding him, suddenly became clear. His back straightened. His eyes became focused, and he answered, I want to feel like I did at the beginning of my career, like the world is my oyster and the possibilities are endless. I want to feel excited again about my life. I asked, what would help you feel excited about your life again? Now, into a flow, another fast answer came. If I knew where to focus my time and energy instead of being pulled in what feels like a million different directions, I think I could get excited again. That gave me all I needed to hear from Kevin about where to spend our time in coaching. We needed to help him clarify what was most important and then give him methods to prioritize accordingly. We got right to work. The first thing I gave Kevin was a values assessment. This helped him pinpoint what was most important versus where he had been focusing his time and effort. We wanted to make sure that he was spending time on activities that were aligned to what was most important to him. When we went through this assessment, what came out was that family was a value of 10 and an action rating of 5. The other values that needed more attention were emotional health, excellence, joy, and connecting to others. He had been over-indexing on recognition and achievement. This values assessment gave us a lot of clue about where to hone in as it relates to his prioritization. Here's what I had Kevin do next. I told him, Kevin leveraged this insight to build a 12-month plan. In this plan, consider what you want to achieve professionally and personally. Then back it up into 6 months, 3 months, and 1 month goals. Finally, look to this every week to help you set your to-do list. Anything that pops up that doesn't lead you to achieving these goals, find a way to get it off your plate. If you get stuck, you can leverage the Eisenhower matrix. More about that in just a little bit. Kevin did execute the plan, and after 6 months of working together, his relationships vastly improved with his team, his family, his boss, and the relationship he had with himself. He took a 1-week vacation with his family for the first time in 5 years, and by the end of our time together, he was cracking jokes and the color had returned to his face. Not only did he feel better, he looked better. A few months later, he emailed me that he had been offered a promotion. He accepted it with the condition that he would only travel once a month for work. In short, he was starting to outline the conditions that would help him be successful in his new role. If you can relate to the common phenomena of feeling overwhelmed with all your leadership responsibilities, here are 3 things that you can do to help. Number 1, just like we did with Kevin, it's great to start by assessing your top values. Take a values assessment. Start by understanding what's most important to you and where are you currently spending your time versus where you should be. This will serve as your North Star as you determine what you want to prioritize to meet the goals that will set you up for success and happiness. Remember, the first step in prioritizing is considering all the things that are important to you. Now, this includes personal and professional. If you want to find a values assessment that will help you take this first important step, you can go to my website, swim-against.com. And on top of any page on my website, click on the banner that says Unlock Insights to Make a Career or Leadership Change. That will take you to your values assessment. Number 2, now that you're clear on your top values versus where you have been spending your time, identify the goals that you want to achieve in 12 months. Again, personal and professional. Then work backward. Set 6-month goals, 1-month goals, and finally weekly goals to take you where you want to go. If you get stuck on where you need to prioritize, use the Eisenhower matrix. The Eisenhower matrix is a task management tool that will help you organize based on urgency and importance. You will have defined most important through your values assessment. Now you just need to weigh in on the urgency of each task as it comes across your desk. To access the Eisenhower matrix, you can visit my website and navigate to the podcast section. Go to episode 3. You'll find access to the Eisenhower matrix there. Finally, the third thing to do is get into a weekly cadence of looking at the meetings on your calendar and color code meetings based on their importance. Green is your highest priority, yellow is the second, blue third, and red not a priority. You can use that or you can choose the color coding of your choice. Find a way to remove yourself from or delegate those meetings that are not high priority, and be sure to add activities that do ladder up to your most important goals. Reassess your large goals regularly. As you know, priorities can shift, and what was important yesterday may not be as critical today. Once you've successfully completed these steps, you'll have found a new clarity about where to focus your time and effort to honor the values that are most important in your life. This will enable you to feel more confident about your contributions, make better decisions in gray areas, and become a better leader, and by extension, increase your happiness. The next step is to communicate the priorities to your team and gain alignment. We'll talk about that in a future episode. Until then, take it one step at a time and stay happy out there. Thanks for listening to The Happy Leader. If you would like more information about me, Amy Sanchez, and our executive coaching and team leadership services at Swim Against the Current, visit swim-against.com. And if you liked this podcast, help others who could use the support find it by giving us a rating. Until next time, life is short. Stay happy.